Making those last few adjustments on your digital artwork can really make or break your painting. Now, whether you've been an artist for years or you're just new into the digital artwork world, here are 3 of the techniques that I've used on pretty much all of my art that I think help pop the image right off the page or make things a little bit more concise and give that effect that I've been looking for since I started the piece. Because all of the artwork that I do, and I'm sure you do as well, you want a feeling to be described in the image, right? That's what art is. It gives a feeling. And so I'm going to show you how to really elevate your artwork, how to put that final touch on, and how to do it with precision. Because if you don't do it correctly, it can really mess up how your artwork looks. So without further ado, let's dive into these 3 tips. Alright, so we have opened up Photoshop here, and I have my final digital image that I'm working with. I've got this to a spot that I think is pretty close to being done. And now I'm going to show you what I do at the end of all my basically pieces to really elevate them. So jumping right into tip 1, it's going to be blend modes. Now I have the base image here just all merged into one layer. I'm going to add a new layer, and I'm going to make it a gradient. Now this is something that can be applicable on pretty much any of your platforms that you use for your digital art. I use Photoshop myself. And just to pick something random, I'm going to go with this pink, or this purple to pink. And I'm actually going to make it maybe like a red to an orange or something like that. It can be random. This is a lot of guess and check on this one here. And now I'm going to go up into this drop down here underneath at the top of your layers bar. And there's going to be tons of different options for blending. Now, what I've found works pretty well is this difference option or exclusion. They give pretty dramatic effects, but like I said, these can make or break your digital artwork. So what I want to do is I want to apply maybe difference, even though it looks crazy. And then I want to merge these 2 layers. So I'm going to go Command Shift Option E because I'm on a MacBook here. And I'm going to minimize or close out this gradient layer so the way that merged layer sits right on top of my original layer here. And I'm going to go through my options here again and pick out something that works, what I think, really well to elevate this piece. Now sorting through, I kind of like this color option here. We'll keep that in mind. The color one looks pretty cool. Well, so does the hue. Oh, this one's pretty dramatic. If I go subtract and I reduce opacity a little bit, that kind of makes things fun. Okay, what we'll do is we'll go with that. So what I did from the beginning, I added a gradient, and then I put a difference blend mode onto that gradient. I merged the layers, and then I moved this to a subtract blend mode and to reduce the opacity a little bit to pull it back. So that's the first tip. Now, our second tip, starting with a brand new layer again here, starting from scratch again, is going to be grain. And you can add grain in a few different ways here. So one of the first ways is through the Camera Raw gallery. And if I go to Filter, Camera Raw here with Photoshop, and underneath Effects, there is a grain option. I'm just going to zoom in a little bit here to this piece just to show you what the texture looks like when this grain starts coming up. And so we won't go crazy with it, but here's bringing it up to about 50%. You can adjust the size of the grain. If you go too much, it makes it a little bit too blurry in my opinion. So I like to keep the size pretty low, maybe around 40-ish. And same with roughness, it really breaks it up if your rough is all the way up. So I'm going to keep my rough somewhere around 50% as well, just to keep things balanced. And here's without the effect and with. Now this is just the first layer of adding grain. So already it's got this glaze over it, which looks pretty nice. Now If we go into our filter gallery, this is something totally separate. We have two different ways to get grain here. There's this first one, which is just the grain filter, which honestly I don't like too much because it adds all of these multicolored grains into your image, which I don't want. So what I'm gonna rather do is if I go into distort and diffused glow and don't actually do any glow amount, I can put grain into here all by itself. And it doesn't make it multicolored. I'm really zoomed into this image now. Pulling back out. See how it gives this final, nice, concise feeling to the image? I'm gonna hit OK on that. And now we've got this final piece, our final piece of the puzzle on the grain, which really works. This is a quick and easy one. Now moving on to tip 3. Tip 3 is gonna be kind of fun too here. Tip 3 is gonna be textures. So I grabbed textures from Unsplash, and Unsplash is a tool that's free to use for most of their images. And what I look for is something that's going to add an overlay to the image that gives it some sort of fun and creative random element. Now, as you're looking at this image here, without it, it's very flat, right? There's no texture really at all. There's a glow behind this moon orb, but other than that, there's nothing. So I've downloaded 2 different textures from Unsplash, and here's how I can show you how to apply them from scratch. So I'm going to grab this image as a whole. I want to transform this to make this over the whole image. Just gonna hold Alt and Shift to stretch it equally. Pull it to where I think would work pretty well. I'm going to rasterize this layer, and I'm actually going to inverse it. I don't like the brown. I want blue and white. So I've inversed by holding Command and I on the layer here. And then we're going right into our blend modes again, but this time we have a texture that we added to the image. And sorting through, I think on this first one, something like that overlay looks really nice. And these are all going to look dramatic, right, until you adjust them a little bit. So this is just kind of giving you an essence of what it's going to be right off the bat, and then you can pull it further down afterwards. So I'm going to use this overlay, and I'm going to reduce this opacity again here, because nothing has to be 100%, right? See, I've pulled it down to about 60%. This is without the texture, and now here's with. It gives this fun sandy element to it, the sandy feel, which is kind of fitting to the piece because this female entity has like this hood that you would see almost like in a desert environment, which is pretty cool. So that works. That's texture 1. I did download another texture just to experiment with, so I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to hold Command T to transform, Shift and Option on a Mac here to open up the image right from the center, and then just kind of playing around with how I want this image to sit on top as an overlay. So maybe right there. This is all guess and check here too, by the way. I'm going to rasterize the layer again, make it full screen, and now let's see which one should we use here. These are all pretty dramatic, aren't they? Right? This is a little bit too much. That one's kind of cool. But what happens if we invert this image as well? See, that's something you can always play with a Command I on a Mac to inverse the layer and see if that does anything different. Ooh, like I like that. That's kind of cool. Okay, yeah, I think I'm gonna go with this darker color overlay type. But again, the opacity is way too heavy. I'll pull that down to about 58%. Now what's that done? It's kind of put the texture only into the super bright areas, which is kind of cool to use. So again, another fun way to add this final element to your image. Now, if I'm hiding into this all, let's use all of these tips and tricks as a final kind of oomph to the image to see what it looks like when we use multiple tips into one. And this is what I use for every image. I use pretty much all of these techniques. So here we go. Starting from scratch, adding a new layer, going gradient, and let's add this blue to purple this time. Hitting OK. It would help if I enabled the vision of the layer here. Now let's look into these blending modes and see what works. Ooh, that hue option is kind of fun. We'll keep that in mind. Looking for something that's going to really give this piece a good final look. Darken's fun too, but I do like the hue. Here's without, here it's with. It's giving this darker, cooler vibe to the image. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a new layer. And then I'm going to add, let's see, before I add grain, because I want that to be my final step, I'm going to add an overlay from a texture. So let me grab one of these textures below. I think I might use this sandy texture here. Don't need this extra layer here. It's already on overlay. Let's put that back to 100%, go back to normal. So this is what it looks like from scratch. And let's just go through the options to see what blend mode is going to work best. I like doing this live with you too in this tutorial. That way you can see my troubleshooting as I search through these different types of options that we have here available. Divide is kind of fun. If we hit divide but we inverse the image, no, that's too much. Let's keep it regular. But again, let's reduce this opacity. Maybe something like a 37% on this, just eyeballing it here. And this is something that you can do as well. Now, let's add a new layer. Let's hold Command Shift Option E again, just to bring all the layers together into one merged layer. And what if I close out the visibility of the texture, of the gradient, and that way this merged layer is sitting right on top of our original image. I'm just curious, and I want to walk through this with you. This is something that I do too. What if we use blend mode now on this merged image over our original image? Let's see what happens. Sometimes something amazing happens and you don't expect it, right? So what are we looking for? Nothing too crazy jumped out at me on this blend mode, but what happens if we inverse this image? Command I again. And let's see what happens. Whoa. Overlay is kind of fun. Soft light's also kind of cool. I think I know what direction we're going to be going in here. I think overlay is going to be it. Wow. Look at how those greens really pop too, right? So now, oops, we are getting very close to being done with this image. Let's throw on some grain. So I'm going to create a new layer. I'm going to hold Command Shift Option E again, just to merge this into one image. I'm going to go to Filter, Camera Raw, and opening this up, going to Effects, and going into my grain. I'm going to zoom in here, just so we know what we're looking at. I don't have to go crazy with this. The roughness can come down because this image is already a little bit rough. The size can also come down pretty low. And how much grain do we want? We just want a little bit, maybe like a 25%. Hit OK. And then we're going to add that one last piece of grain effect in our filter gallery using the diffuse glow, but without the glow amount, right? So it's just the graininess effect that we want. Let's pull this in and see how we can get this to feel good. Something like a 5 amount looks wonderful. Let me zoom out to see how it feels too. I like it. Okay. So at the end of the day, what we've done is we've used a few different blend modes, we've used some texture overlays, and we've used multiple ways to get that grain effect. We've combined them all over this final image to give it one extra pop. And look at how dramatically different this has come from the original, right? So this is just showing you one small, quick way that you can, within minutes, elevate your digital artwork into something that works really well for you. Something that really jumps off the page. Now, there's a lot to experiment with here. There's a lot to unpack. Have fun using these tools. And if you enjoyed this video, I would definitely appreciate liking, sharing, commenting. That's all good ways to support me in the growing of this channel. So thank you for being here. I appreciate you. And if you have any other questions about art tips or tricks that you would like to know, comment below and I'll see if I can create a tutorial on those next. But take care, and I'll see you in the next one.